Hey everyone and welcome back. On this week's video, I'll be breaking down why I don't like passive modalities as a means to address aberrant muscle tone. So what do I mean by passive modalities? I'm specifically referring to stretching, massage, TheraGun, cryo, and foam rolling. So for the most part, what I mean by passive modality is anything where you are not an active participant in troubleshooting the root issue. And what is the root issue? It always comes down to one of two things: breathing, airflow, and gravity. So let's take standing, for example. If you're standing and you're waiting for the train to come on and you're on your phone or whatever, where is most of your weight in your feet? For most people, your weight will be translated forward towards your toes. If you're wearing specific types of dress shoes, women in heels, and even men with some dress shoes, your heel is going to be elevated ever so slightly. So now most of the forces are going to be translated forward on the feet. But here's the thing, even if we're kind of like tipped forward, like that Michael Jackson lean that people have seen. So what does that mean? It means now instead of being stacked, you are tipped. So this is a much harder position to maintain in space than this. But this is where most of us are. And then the thing that we see now is that we kind of slouch a little bit from this posture. So we're not stacked when most of us are slouching. When most of us are slouching, we're actually tipped forward. So now people say you need to sit up straight. So what does that do? That usually happens around the lumbar spine. So now we try to do this, and this is how most of us are. So we have this banana shape, and we're trying to get straighter or sit up taller or stand taller, but all we're really doing is just kind of leaning into this forward translation of pressure on our feet. So then what are we doing in order to not fall? Our calf muscles are now pressing down and pointing our toes so that we're applying pressure on the toes to keep us from face planting. So we're kind of pedaling down on our feet to keep us from going down. So our calves are going to be using a lot of tension. We can also push ourselves away from the floor by straightening our knees. So our quads, our thighs are going to be kicking in. So now we have calves and quads kicking in more than they really should. And what else? Well, if we're trying to sit up straight and we're trying not to fall, we're going to try to arch ourselves back or arch ourselves up. So now we're using lumbar extensors, we're using our lower back muscles to keep us from falling, because the nervous system, the brain, doesn't really care what we use to remain upright so long as the brain and the skull are upright and can observe and be on the watch for incoming danger, right? That's all that matters. Can this structure remain upright so it can do what it does, right? So now that's the big thing, and that's the root issue that most of us have when we're experiencing a tight low back. I just told you, we're always trying to manage this position. If we're falling forward, we're going to use lumbar extensors to keep us upright, or rather, we're going to use lumbar extensors to keep us upright. We're using quads to push us away from the ground. We're using calves to push us away from the ground. What does everyone always complain about? You have tight quads, you have tight calves, you have a tight lower back. Okay, now what about hamstrings? Well, you didn't mention hamstrings. Why do people feel that they have tight hamstrings? If this is your pelvis, the front of your pelvis, this is the back of your pelvis, and you are tipped forward, hamstrings attach back here, thumbs, right? Hamstrings attach back here. So as you are anteriorly tilted forward, those hamstrings get stretched or put on eccentric load. If they are constantly on eccentric load, then you're always kind of like putting tension on them in this lengthened position. Well, no shit, they're going to feel tight, okay? So you are feeling a restriction in the hamstrings because they are at end range. Right? Now, the hamstrings will attach down by the knee, and they're going to start pulling up because this side is pulled. So now this part's going to be pulled and put on eccentric load. And then the calves are going to do the same thing now because the heels are constantly raised. Like there's a whole line of action that's going on as a result of us being unable to feel our heels. Right? So that's just structure. Like I haven't talked about air pressure. So when you breathe, take a deep breath in, like a really, really deep inhale, and stand while you're doing it. What you're going to feel is you're going to feel yourself being translated forward. And I don't care if you chest breathe or belly breathe, both of them are going to translate you forward. Chest, thoracic extension, belly breathing, lumbar extension, right? So now this whole cycle of managing gravity, you have another thing that's coupled with this load. So it's not just breathing, it's not just gravity, they're intertwined into the same thing. If you can't manage airflow, you can't manage gravity and vice versa. So now, here's the cool part. So what do people do? They feel all of this tension in their body, right? And they don't know what's going on. They just feel like, I'm going to go and stretch it or use a TheraGun or whatever. Great. Now, what's going on is you are removing the strategy, right? Because the quads, why are they active? Because they don't want you to fall. Calves, why are they active? They don't want you to fall. Hamstrings, lower back, like all of these, there's a reason for all of these things. Now what you're doing with these passive modalities is you're trying to take away this muscle tone. These muscles are basically the brakes. They are preventing you from just collapsing. Okay, so now you are trying to remove this strategy and you don't replace it with anything else. The best way to remove, let's say, aberrant quad tension or calf tension is, and even hamstrings, because they're eccentrically loaded, they're stretched long, the best way to remove all this aberrant tension is to find a better strategy so that these structures don't have to do as much work. So what does that look like? If you're laying down on the ground and your feet are on a bench, you're going to dig your heels into the bench and you're going to feel your hamstrings rotate your pelvis into a posterior tilt. Now, the first time you do this, you may feel quads, you may feel your knee, you may feel calves, you may even feel your neck. You're going to feel other strategies other than what you're trying to feel to solve this problem. So the issue is problem solving how you can only feel hamstrings to solve this particular task. And then you got to figure out how to do that standing, laying on your side, on all fours, whatever, doing a deadlift or a press, right? The issue is leveraging structures to do their job, do what they were intended to do, okay? But if you just use passive modalities as a cheat, as a game genie, I'm showing my age now, right? Then you're not reintroducing a new strategy to deal with the problem. You are saying, hey, here's the problem X, right? This is a strategy Y that you're using for problem X. We're going to take away strategy Y, and then that's it. So then you're like, wait, what the hell am I supposed to do? So now your body freaks out and panics, and it gives you even more tension because it says, wait, why are you trying to take away the strategy? We needed the strategy. This was the only thing that was keeping you fully functioning, right? All of this aberrant tension. But we take that away. So now you're like, oh, what am I going to do? So that's why when you get a massage or you stretch a lot or you do all of these things that are done to you, a couple hours, like in the beginning, you feel great. And a couple hours later, you feel like crap because all this tension came back. It's like, how many people have gone to, a chiro or a massage therapist and they feel great walking out, but like later that evening or the next day, all that tension comes back and you have to go see them every single week or maybe twice a week, right? Because they're not giving you the strategies that you need to be able to deal with gravity and airflow. And it really comes down to a few basic things. Can you leverage hamstrings to move a pelvis? Can you leverage adductors to rotate your pelvis onto one side? Can you use obliques to help you get all of the air out of your body and then fill up your lungs with air? Because when you do that, when you exhale, your rib cage gets retracted. And then the big deal is to not allow that rib cage to float forward when you inhale. So that's why I tell people I don't want you to belly breathe when you inhale. I want you to exhale fully. Feel your obliques, feel your posterior oblique attachments, and then inhale while resisting belly expansion, right? Because now I'm helping you to stay stacked onto your heels when using your hamstrings when you're breathing. So you're killing two birds with one stone on most of my drills. You are loading the hamstrings, you are loading the adductors, and therefore you are unloading quads, unloading back, unloading calves. And I'm having you breathe through all of these positions. So now not only are you dealing with gravity, but you're also dealing with airflow. Two birds, one stone. And this is the reason why I don't like passive modalities, because at the end of the day, you're not really doing anything, right? You have to understand what is the root problem, and then you have to address the root problem. Stop trying to put out all these tertiary fires when the big issue is not even being addressed. All right. On next week's video, I'll be talking about where your eyes should be focused while doing squats, deadlifts, or just generally exercising at the gym. Take care.